Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm Archlord Dirk and today we're looking at Lootbound. Now this is a bit of a roguelike, similar in the vein to something, say, Slay the Spire, but this time there's no cards. There is skills that you're learning along the way and that you're kind of making decisions about, and we're going to jump right into the game here. So welcome to Lootbound. You'll see we've got a little tutorial here. Talks about the kind of dice you can equip to your characters and such. Now in this particular build, I only had the warrior class available to me. So you'll see I will click through here on a couple of other classes. There is the witch, which I did end up having one join my party. And there is a paladin, and then there's another one, the bard. So you have all those classes available to you. They have some differences in the way that they play, obviously. You've got basic attacks for the warrior. You can see Shred and Raging Defense. Each of them starts with different basic attacks, and along the way you have opportunities to gain other types of attacks. So without further ado, let's jump into this scenes, right? We can see there's a little bit of animation with the flame there. Of course, we're reading, but everything else is still frame, which is totally fine. They do wear some of their inspiration on their sleeve. You might have noticed there in the corner there was a D20. You will see D20 rolls in this game. There's the map. It is similar, again, to something like Slay the Spire. And then you enter into this sort of Dragon Quest style combat, where you've got your characters and their stats on the one side of the screen, and then you've got the enemies and opponents' characters on the other side of the screen. So I like to call that, the combat reminds me of games like Dragon Quest, where you aren't looking at necessarily the full party or both sides of the battle at the same time. It is turn-based, which is great. I love the turn-based combat. And so as you jump in here, you'll see in this combat, your health does not always regenerate at the start of a battle, but your armor does. So you have different abilities. You click on the enemies and just kind of go through the combat. Now, at the beginning, the combat is pretty basic. It's, stab, slash type combat. But the inventory system is where this game really takes an interesting approach, and I'm actually quite fond of the way they do inventory. It sort of takes that Resident Evil grid system and gives you an opportunity to start putting things together. You grab a loot from whatever monster you defeated or whatever the task was, and you'll put it into your inventory. Now, I made the mistake here early on of not actually putting them into my I put them into my inventory, but I did not actually equip them to my character. You will note that when the inventory screen comes up again, that I do put it into my equipment tab the next time. Consumables also have their own independent spot. They can be put in the inventory, but you'll see I drop them down here in the consumables tab. And there I figured it out. I've moved into my equipment. Now, everything is grid-based, and you can see exactly how many grids each thing takes up, so you're able to combine and pair things and organize the inventory and your equipment in such a way that it allows you to maximize your storage space, which is cool. It's a fun way to do it. And in my initial run, it was not too overwhelming, so I enjoyed it. But I can imagine it can get overwhelming pretty quickly, especially as you're gathering more gear and things of that nature. What is interesting is you can actually equip more than one, sort of armors and things like that. So I found that to be kind of a unique thing. So here, it's giving us a little quick tutorial about some of our abilities and things that we are able to add in. You see there, it's giving you an example of being able to utilize an ability on an assistant character or an ally companion. I don't know why I called it an assistant character. So here you'll notice me make a choice between two different abilities. We've got Thorn Blade and Focus Strike. I ended up taking Focus Strike. I just thought it was a little bit more in line with kind of what I was looking at. Here on the map you have a legend that gives you all of the different things. You've got enemy, elite enemy, consumable, chest, training, companion, blacksmith, so on and so forth. And as you progress, obviously, much like in the roguelike fashion or in any game, right? The enemies do start to get stronger. They do start to get harder. There is some tactical nature to the combat in this. Obviously, enemies have armor. Some attacks will do more to armor than they will to health, and some attacks will do more to health than it will to armor. So if your opponent is heavily armored, you may want to switch attacks to make that work. So there is quite a complex system going on here. You'll see I really desperately tried to make something fit that wasn't going to fit, but I do eventually figure it out what exactly I am trying to do. But it is a cool system where you have this opportunity to kind of layer your weapons and armor, and later on you get some, we call them relics that will enhance your abilities depending on where you situate them in your equipment. And it's a fun way to do those things. I quite like how it's done. Ultimately decide to go with that situation for now. Again, I'm not super far in, so I don't have anything. But you also have deity and camp and ability, sentinel part, and sentinel. Now we'll get into these more as we kind of adventure, but pretty much they're pretty straightforward. Enemies are things you fight. Elite enemies are going to be stronger versions of that. Consumables mean you're going to get to pick between 3 consumables, whether it be a bomb, a health potion, or a mana potion. Chests are going to be treasure that, who knows what you might get. Training is where you're going to have an opportunity to pick a new skill or ability. Companions are going to add members to your party. So you'll see I'm 1 space away from a companion slot, so I will end up having the witch join me here in just a bit. Right here I'm at the blacksmith, which allows me to basically make a roll and determine if I'm going to be able to gain that extra ability, if you will. It's a pretty unique, it's a pretty good way to do it. I'm not going to say it's unique necessarily, but you'll see I'll roll the d20 here in a moment. And once I do that, if I meet the difficulty class or beat it, obviously just like in Dungeons and Dragons, it will be moved into my abilities and I will gain that. And now if I fail it, you have an opportunity to do extra roll, and you can see there extra roll as it's explaining it to me. So here I go for the vampirism, difficulty class of 4. I end up failing, I get 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do the extra roll. It lets me roll a d6, I gain 10, now I'm at 12, I'm successful. So I gain the blacksmith ability. And again, that's going to give me some kind of piece of equipment that will allow me to enhance myself. Now in this case, it gave me a crystal or a gem that I can actually equip to items. So I end up equipping this vampirism gem to my sword. It took me a minute to realize exactly what I was doing despite reading it. But it allows me to equip it to my sword, and then I get a +10 to vampirism, which is going to make the sword, whenever it hits, do a little bit of like health restoration, right? And stealing life force. Which I found to be, it's cool that you can do that. You can enhance these weapons. Each weapon has a slot. You can only add a certain amount of enhancements to those slots in a given moment. So that sword that I had 1. Now here I get to pick a companion. I end up picking the witch. I don't know why. I just found that she might be, or I felt that this witch might be beneficial to me. Here we are jumping into our first combat with both characters. Let's see here, I'm making some decisions. Just going ahead and doing a standard sword slash as my health or my armor is full at the moment. And one thing I don't like is that you don't actually get to control your companion. They make choices based on the AI. I kind of wish that you could control them more directly. Now, you do know that they're going to attack the weakest enemy. That's something you have, that's how they decide who to attack. That does kind of help you know, or help you strategize how to get them to attack a certain enemy. If you can kill an enemy and then you want them so that they'll attack the other one, you have that opportunity. If you want to, of course, have them assist with attacking an enemy, then you'll attack the stronger enemy so that they don't die, and then hopefully their health will go down low enough that you'll be able to have the witch attack that particular mob, if you will. So what we have here, honestly, is it's a really fun game. It's taking the Slay the Spire and some of those roguelikes to a different position or different place, I think. It still feels very comfortable, I think, if you've played games like Slay the Spire, but there is enough kind of different here that you are going to have a good time, right? Combat's a little bit different. Maybe, you know, in some cases, it might be initially a little less engaging. Obviously, in Slay the Spire, you have those cards and you can really kind of quickly organize them and be building decks that get kind of goofy. Whereas in this, you starting off with 2 abilities, and you don't necessarily gain abilities very quickly. You have a max of 6 abilities. You're not necessarily going to be looking for, or you're not going to be able to make synergies with your allies' abilities exactly as you might want them to. It's just going to kind of depend. Now, you will see here in the corner, I do have a spot for being able to equip things to my witch. I don't do that early on. I just kind of ignore it for now. I decide that I want to go after the deity because I wanted to kind of see what that was. So I go for the fight. And it's another, you know, again, it's a pretty straightforward fight. I'm using abilities that allow me to kind of really strike hard, but they are draining my mana as I go along. Mana is a pretty finite resource. It does sort of regenerate a little bit after a fight or a battle, but it doesn't, you know, not completely, obviously. And then you need to rely on things like mana potions, perhaps abilities if you have those available to you, different things of that nature. There's a dodge mechanic. It is a static percentage, and obviously with equipment you can enhance that, or depending on what class you have, it might be higher or lower. You'll see I have an 11% dodge in the corner here. And of course added another ability by equipping this face mask thing that gave me thorns. Another ability that, basically what it does is when somebody hits me, they take a little bit of damage from the thorns because they're getting thorned. You know, I'm protecting myself with the thorns, right? That's the hope anyway. So we make it here to our deity, and basically what you do is they demand an offering. You are going to lose an amount of your mana. Now, it doesn't tell you exactly, but it does show you by this gray flashing bar about how much it's going to be. If you choose to accept that, you receive a gift. I do wish that it gave you a specific number so that you knew how much mana you were going to lose, because obviously it is not insignificant amount. You can tell by the bar, but it doesn't really tell me exactly how much I'm going to lose. So I wish that was a little bit clearer. That would have been kind of nice to be able to see kind of written out for me. You know, I'm a simple guy, okay? I need it written out for me. Now here, it's going to kind of talk to me about aura. So these are things that basically special properties that will grant bonuses to the adjacent equipment. So my sword here is going to gain a benefit, or well, my sword is not actually, I take that back. My armors and wearables will gain a benefit from this pendant that is going to give me a specific aura and allow me to have more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more gusto, right? Depending on what your armor is or whatever, you might gain more from that. So we continue kind of moving along, and honestly, this is the gist of the game. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on, you know, talking about all the in-depth stuff, because there is definitely more to be had here. But I think games like this really kind of very early on introduce you to what you're going to be doing. So this is another game where if you really enjoy things like Slay the Spire, Dungeons of Dreadmore, if you're, you know, for a throwback, you're going to probably enjoy this game. I will say it is a little bit slower than something like Slay the Spire in my mind. And the inventory system does add a unique kind of spin to things, giving you an opportunity to improve your character, but making sure that you're not just, you have to organize yourself and get that equipment fit in just so, right? To make sure that you can maximize all of your bonuses. I think that's cool. I think it's fun, rather than just having like a slot system like an MMO or something. You have this equipment tile, grid, and you have to make it fit. And if you want to be as organized as you can and make the things synergize well and fit so that you can get the most benefit and the most bonuses possible. I really do like that. I think it's a cool thing. It takes a game that might not be quite as interesting right off the bat, a lot more interesting, I think. There is a couple of downsides to this game. Number one, I think some of the things are maybe not as clear as they could be, like we talked about with the deity, the aura, or it obviously requires mana to sacrifice to that. If you have a colored in bar that tells you it's going to take, a chunk of it, but you don't know the specific amount. So depending on where you're at, you may decide, it maybe makes the decision to sacrifice that mana a little bit harder if you don't know the exact numerical value. Animation-wise, it's pretty simple. Your characters are standing, they're doing very simple animations. I don't really have a problem with that. I think it definitely adds to the flavor of the game that those animations are there and that you do have something happening rather than just seeing, going back to kind of that Dragon Quest vibe where you don't see your character at all, you just see slashes on the screen or fire appear or whatever. You do at least have a character kind of standing there and making some gestures and stuff like that. So if this is a game that looks interesting to you, I say you pick it up. It is out. It's been out for a few days now. You will enjoy this game, like I said, if you are a Slay the Spire fan, if you're a fan of Dungeons of Dreadmore, any of those kind of more pacing-based roguelikes, even Darkest Dungeon, where you're delving in and you're going step by step. Slay the Spire is a far better comparison than Dungeons of Dreadmore or even Darkest Dungeon, because in Dungeons of Dreadmore, there's a whole floor, and you're exploring that floor as you move around. Obviously, it is turn-based. Every turn you take, everything's moving around you and doing things. But the combat, your abilities that you're picking up are more akin to this than they are Slay the Spire. Darkest Dungeon, you kind of enter in with your party, and you have to manage a lot of different resources. This game, there's a lot less managing of resources. You don't have to worry about sanity or anything like that. You're really just focused health, armor, mana. But you do have that sort of step-by-step progression like you see in Darkest Dungeon, and you are dealing with companions, and you have opportunities to kind of switch up your party. Slay the Spire, obviously, is probably the best example because you're going to be managing you're going to be managing the map, right? You're going to be branching along the way. You're going to try to be reaching the end point of a section and then moving on to another section, like in Slay the Spire. So, I did enjoy my time with this game. It didn't hook me as much as I would have liked it to. Not that it's a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. Again, if you're looking, if you've beaten Slay the Spire and you've beaten Slay the Spire 2 and you're looking for more of that, I would give Lootbound a try. I would give this game an opportunity. But it's definitely not reinventing the wheel or really going to be like revolutionizing the genre, I don't think. But not every game has to do that, right? Sometimes it's okay to wear your inspirations on your sleeve, and I think that's what Lootbound does well. It wears its inspiration on its sleeve, and it is a fun game for it. So if you're looking for more Slay the Spire, and you've exhausted those, which I doubt it, but maybe you have, then look no further than Lootbound. Once again, I have been Archlord Dirk, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and like and subscribe. I apologize that there's been a little bit of a delay in posts. I am back to my regular job full-time, so it is going to slow me down a little bit on posting content, but I am genuinely having fun doing this, so I'm going to continue to make things. And hopefully it will just continue to get better from where I started. Thanks.